folks who are tuning in, who are listening here, we have Frank Ryle here on the podcast. Frank is a project management guru. He's been in the industry for a long time, worked in many countries, touched a lot of different projects, and so we're excited to have him. Why project management? Did your first career not work out, and that's how you got here, or why are you a project manager? Why
That's a
have you been
good
at it for so
question. I
long?
mean, I think in a very, very simplistic way, before there was engineers, there was people who built buildings that fell down and they said, we need engineers, right? And before there was doctors, there was people who got sick and they said, we need somebody to help not make them sick. And I think project management just evolved out of a need that projects were late, projects were over budget, people weren't talking to each other. And people said, we need a person to coordinate, integrate, communicate. And ultimately, the PMI came about with project management as a concept, as a profession, if you want. And I was one of the first to get that.
Um, uh, do you have any kind of funny stories about some of the projects that you worked on, or
We grew up in a world, like my analogy with engineering, where buildings fell down and then we wanted to stop them falling down. So I grew up in a world where projects failed. Every project failed. Like it was just the nature of the beast that they were late, they were over budget, they didn't have the scope, they didn't have the coordination. And so, yeah, we built a milk chocolate factory in Russia. Now, I was project manager for that one. Russia is a dark chocolate market, and we're building the world's largest milk chocolate factory in the world's largest dark chocolate market. And then we had to retrofit it to make dark chocolate afterwards. So that's why I have the gray hair. But no, loads of projects. Like the Terminal 4 at JFK Airport in New York. I mean, the penalty, I joke, when we talk about contracts, I always say, are you married? You're under contract. Like Barry's under contract, I'm under contract. But being under contract is well done. But being under contract is a cutting edge where we're going to penalize you. We're going to bring you to court. And so the penalty for being late on the airport at JFK was $25 million a week. And that gets your attention. Suddenly it's like, guys, do you have a schedule? Do you hope that that's what we're bringing? There isn't just about getting something done, but it's about getting something done in a professional manner, which
within
is,
Intuitive, we've had project management, a PMO within Intuitive now for, I think we're going on 8 years. And so it's evolved a lot over that time.
yeah.
We're excited about that. But tell us a little bit about the framework that you're bringing. How did you how did you put this framework together? Why did you think there was a need for a framework? I mean, I can think of 12 project management frameworks out there right now.
Yeah.
Why this one, and where the value you see it bringing?
Simplicity and golf. Okay, so I love golf, as you probably know. I'm Irish, but I had this idea that if I could simplify it down, because the PMBOK had got to 49 process steps, it was a lot. The book was 1,000 pages, and it was the kind of book that once you put it down, it was hard to pick it up again. And at least you could trust the process and then apply. I see it more like the skeleton of your body, and then the beauty is the rest outside, right? So we still had to have that skeleton, and that was the approach. And so
Yeah, exactly. More over 100 project managers have been trained in this framework or done consulting workshops with you directly with their core teams.
yeah,
There's a real hunger for it. People are looking for this sort of skeleton, as you're saying, like what do I
yeah,
stand on? Like, yes, I do want the creativity and the freedom to manage my project based on its needs, but I need something to stand on, something
yeah,
that I can lean on, something that a process I can count on to
yeah.
help make sure that it's not just up to me to remember everything, right? Like,
Yes,
what are the steps I take to make sure that I'm doing all the things I need to do to be
the
successful? And
interviewer.
so,
What's your memory of
yeah,
you read the book?
yes,
What was
many
your
many years ago,
many
actually.
years ago? No, but it's interesting. A book doesn't translate the nuances. I mean, it tries to, right? There's some character.
Totally, yeah.
I'm not a writer, obviously, but I hope it helps you to get through the pages. Like,
You're not a writer, but you are an author. So the flow is a really important piece of your framework, and you led with it when you were first telling us about it. And I did not get that when I first read the book. Like I was like, oh, here are the steps. Steps make sense. But it wasn't until we started having more conversation one on one that we started applying it to some projects that I was working on or my team was working on. That
yeah,
I started to see, as you said, like the information from one step builds on the next step and the next step. And in the same way, you can backtrack through the steps of like,
this
hey,
is
you gave
my
me.
metaphor of a table that's well built and you could stand on it. That this thing has been well built, and therefore we feel more comfortable in sharing this with senior stakeholders, and the markets perhaps. But otherwise, yeah, we're winging it. We're winging it here. It's ad hoc. Yeah.
Yes, and schedule is step six. And so
Yes.
often I think people I talk to, whether on my team or just in project management in general, even our senior stakeholders, the first thing they say is like, "Here's what I want you to do. Give me a schedule."
Yeah.
One thing I will say, like our senior leadership, like they don't just accept schedules. It's
Mm.
not like, oh, the schedule came from the PMO, so I guess it's
Must
the
be okay.
gospel truth. They are challengers. They challenge our schedules. Can it be faster? Can
Yeah.
we cut red tape? How
Yeah.
do we move as efficiently as possible? And that they're right to do so. We're in a competitive space. We're
But just
trying
quickly,
to.
so we're moving on from the framework into the workshops. And I do hope that as we grow
Mm,
as an organization together, the PMO I'm talking about here, that the real value for us is the workshops. I think where we can bring people who don't know the framework and don't know project management, but have them kind of orchestrated to get towards, as you know now, requirements or work breakdown structure or risks, and know that this takes us to the next step and the next step. And then,
before we wrap up
yes.
uh, this podcast, I did want to just introduce the steps. Like, if you just take us through the steps, what are they?
What are we aiming for? Like I normally have a dartboard, and my comment here is if there's any confusion, if we know where we're going, there's Kilimanjaro, we're climbing Kilimanjaro. There's Mount Everest, we're climbing Mount Everest. Like it's clear, everybody knows. Get up, get down, go home. Now there are stakeholders, step two, stakeholders who are interested in that, impacted by that, or have an influence on that journey, and even the operation of it afterwards. People have what's called requirements, and this is step three. They have needs and wants and desires and hopes and expectations. And if we don't gather those requirements from the stakeholders, we are going to be in trouble. Now, we may not. Then we go to step four, which is the work. That's kind of most project management-y kind of one. It's how much work will it take to meet the requirements of the stakeholders to achieve the goal. So we're always looking back to the dartboard, to the goal. And we have a lot of work, and people use expressions, a mountain of work, a plate full of work, whatever you want to call it, like a
boatloads of work.
boatload of work, yeah, shipload of work in my day. But you get the lot of work, right? Because then I have risks in doing that work rather than risks of something else. It's the risk of doing that work, and there's training and there's testing and there's translations and there's all sorts of other stuff. And then I can say I can build a better schedule. That's step six. So it's step six because I have the risks, I have the work, I have the requirements, I have the stakeholders, and I have the goal. And my schedule then becomes about dependencies, it becomes about durations, it becomes about maybe even optimizing, the critical path and understanding those concepts. And then we get into execution, which is the big one, obviously, where we make it happen. And obviously, flawless execution comes from flawless planning. So you get the idea. If we want to get into execution. Now, we also have another one, which I'm calling step 8, which is controlling. This is the plan, do, check, plan, do, check. So we're not just doing it, we're also checking it. But you do want to get the idea of just do it and enjoy it and have fun. But there's also checking to see, is it what we expected? And do we need corrective action? So that's where we talk about corrective action. And then finally, closing. We should always be aware of that, not just for the project itself, but I think to celebrate with the team.